Do you ever lie awake at night thinking about all the embarrassing things you've ever done or been a part of in your life? Do you ever wish there's a way that you could let go of those anxieties and feelings, especially late night when it keeps you up? Well, let's dive into it today. This podcast is an extension of the Purple Door, a nonprofit organization serving 12 counties in South Texas. Our mission is to empower the community and those affected by domestic violence and sexual assault to transition to a safe and healthy environment. Disclaimer: this podcast discusses topics sensitive in nature. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. Welcome back to the Beyond the Door podcast. I am Shelby Ledesma, your host, and today I am joined by two special guests. Alex, welcome to the podcast. Who are you?
Thank you. My name is Alexandra Hermes. Everybody here just calls me Alex. I am a counselor here at the Purple Door and have been in this role for 4 years.
Wonderful. Alex, are you from this area?
I am not, actually. I was born and raised in Robstown.
Woo!
I know. Go Red. But I reside in Calallen, and then I just commute back and forth.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for being here. And I see somebody that we all know already. So welcome back, Alma. Can you tell us who you are and what you do at the Purple Door?
My name is Alma Selman, and I am a counselor like Alex, and 4 years, working on 5 years here with the agency, and that's me in a nutshell.
Very good. Well, welcome back. And ladies, thank you for being on today. So we are going to talk about something that affects most people, but maybe you don't have a name for it, right? That gnawing feeling of something called the shame spiral. You both use this and work through this in your work as counselors here at the Purple Door. So can you explain to us in your own words, what is the shame spiral?
The shame spiral is a triggering event. It could be your emotions. It could be things that happened in your past that it brings up emotion.
Okay.
As we talked about shame. It could be embarrassment. It could feel like guilt. It could, or feelings of inadequacy.
Right. Like you're just not enough. Something's off. And most importantly, you feel like it's with you.
So like everything internally with you. Something's off. When I think about a spiral, right, we're thinking about the shape. Like I think about a tornado. When I think about you hear the phrase someone is spiraling or the shame spiral. So we're kind of, in that case, right, visually, we're starting with something big and it gets kind of smaller. And I think that with this concept, that kind of is the point, right?
Absolutely.
Something big to smaller. So how does that work? What are those steps in the shame spiral?
Right. So, like Alma said, typically it starts with, a feeling, an emotion, shame, embarrassment, inadequacy.
Because of an event or something like that?
Right. Something that's happened, something that's transpired. Typically, when we work with clients, it's a relationship has ended.
Okay.
Whether it be due to domestic violence or sexual violence, it's typically the root of the cause of the failure of the event or the relationship is because something is wrong with you, right? So that typically leads them into our chair. What is wrong with me is typically something they typically ask, and this is kind of where we work with them to better understand that there is nothing wrong with them. It's something that they can work through, and a lot of times it takes longer than most.
Yeah, like a longer process for that. I mean, absolutely.
It's that inner dialogue that you have with yourself. There may have been some things that you were told over the course of your relationship or relationships outside, not just with your intimate partner, but family as well.
Yes.
You know, how you were raised and the things that you experience and internalized. And so, changing that inner dialogue is something that we work on in working through that self-blame, the expectations that you have self-imposed upon yourself. And again, like I said, when you're growing up, if you grew up with maybe one or more parents that their self-judgment of themselves kind of bleeds on to your upbringing, the things that you see. If they're very critical of other people, then that's all you know. Or not all you know, but I mean a big part of how you're raised. And so that affects your relationships as you're growing up, and how you process things and internalize that guilt or the shame and embarrassment.
That becomes your voice too, right?
Exactly.
I think one thing so interesting about that inner voice, and because it never shuts off, right? And I know, like, for myself, you don't realize that, but that voice is always there.
Right.
Right? And everything that you do. And we want it to be positive, but for most of us,
Yes.
that's not the case. And then when you're adding an intimate partner violence situation or sexual violence or something like that, that is exacerbated for sure. So thinking about the shame spiral that can happen in all kinds of relationships, but what are some, in your experience, what are some of those external triggers that you see? Like, I guess external meaning like things in your environment. What are some common things that you guys see with that?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think environment is everything.
Okay.
So
yeah, what do you mean by that?
I mean, typically, like Alma said earlier, when you are in a household with either one or more parents and the environment, communication looks like yelling and screaming and throwing things, that was their normal way of communicating. And then when you become an adult and you're building relationships, whether that be with intimate partners or, with coworkers, right? Or just in your everyday life, when you're an adult, it becomes a little bit alarming to you when you understand, wow, I don't have healthy communicating skills. My way of communicating is through actions, right? And someone, is very interested in wanting to know who I am, and all of those things that I learned when I was little doesn't necessarily relate to who I am now. And then sometimes they do, sometimes they come back, sometimes, and that can be part of the shame spiral. I yelled my needs instead of communicating my needs. That means, I'm broken and I'm inadequate. And then that leads to more, no one's going to want to be my friend. No one's going to want to work with me. I'm just a big failure, and then that will lead to, that person knows that I had an argument with this person, so I'm going to stray away from them. I'm not going to speak to them anymore because I know they're judging me.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And then that can just be, feelings, okay, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy of having friends. I'm not worthy of being in the position that I am because I don't have all the tools that I need to become successful in this role.
Alex, you just said something that I had not ever thought about with shame. Is that you have what you know, and part of something that can exacerbate that shame is seeing something different and wanting your reality to be like this, or realizing that what you're doing is not what everyone else is doing. Or I had never thought about it like that.
It puts a spotlight on, instead of looking at it as, okay, everybody has different experiences and that's what you bring to the table, it's more internalized of, oh my gosh, what is wrong with me, or what was wrong with my family, and why isn't it this way or that way? And then I think the other thing is what feels familiar. When we're talking about when we're growing up and the home environment's chaotic, it's not that you actively want to continue that in your future relationships, but that's what you know. And when it feels familiar, it feels comfortable. It feels safe on a weird level.
Right.
And then when we have our clients come in and they're sitting across and we're talking about these things, when we talk about changing that, looking at it differently and incorporating coping skills that are going to be more effective, it feels very unfamiliar and it starts to feel very scary and unsafe. And so that's typically when people are like, okay, no, I can't do this, because that inner dialogue starts going in again, because I'm not worthy, or because, I'm broken. There's something, these patterns keep repeating. And it takes a while to connect the dots and to look at them.
Really like
exactly.
yes.
Exactly. So, it's a process, and what I find, and I think you can agree, is when we have a client come in and they sit down, it's like, okay, I've already decided I'm going to heal. And so it's going to, I'll see you a couple of times and then everything's better. And it doesn't work that way. It's a process.
Do you see that the majority of the time when someone comes and sits in your chair, is it like, okay, you're going to fix everything for me?
Yes.
Ooh, okay. How do you both handle that situation? I think that would be heavy.
It is. It's definitely heavy. We just grab our wand and then we wave it.
That's, I was wondering. That's what I was thinking about. Where is your magic wand?
No. Yeah, so we
if
keep
only it was that easy,
we
right?
keep it hidden. It typically, it just depends on the client, because, and we oftentimes tell them that, this is, the way that I explain it to my clients is, it's like a puzzle.
Okay.
You come in with X amount of puzzle pieces, and every client is going to have a different amount of puzzle pieces. And that is going to distinguish whether or not how long your journey is going to be. But that's something that me and you would work together on. It's an easier process for us to put the puzzle pieces together as a team than it would be for you to try to do this on your own. It would take a little bit longer, not to say that you can't do this on your own. But if you're wanting to do the work, and if you're wanting to incorporate all of the pieces that you have to this puzzle, you can complete that puzzle together.
Okay, I like that.
Starting with the conversation of, this is what my role is. My role is to be supportive. My role is to, advocate for you, to help you find resources, but I don't fix people. I've told several of my clients that, because you can tell when someone comes in and they're just ready to have that magic wand come out and go, fix me.
Well, and wouldn't we all benefit from that? I wish we could just let me go sit down and talk to you for an hour and it's all sorted, right?
And sometimes
that's
it
ideal.
Feels like a relief, when you just talk about, what's been weighing on you. But it's important for the client to understand, as well as us, that we cannot do the 100% of the work. They have to put in, the work themselves as well.
Their life, their choice, right?
Right.
Absolutely. So with your, in the years that you've both been here, for almost 5 years, what are some kind of examples of how this shame spiral can really impact the survivors we see? We talk about that internal monologue, but what else?
Well,
what does that look like with behavior?
It can look like a lot of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a millennial, so when I think of inner voice, I think of the Lizzie McGuire little,
Okay, I like
talking. It's kind of like that, but it's understanding that shame and guilt are different. Okay. So shame is believing that you are bad at your core. Something is wrong with me. Okay. Right. And then guilt is believing that a specific action you did was wrong.
Okay.
Something that you did was wrong, but still believing that you're a good person. I feel guilty for doing this, but, shame comes along when you're like, well, that's just who I am. I'm just a bad person.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I think that can also open the eyes of a lot in terms of self-forgiveness, and that's a journey in itself. That takes quite a bit of time. it's one thing to forgive someone for hurting you, but to forgive yourself for hurting yourself, that takes quite a bit of time.
Man, yeah.
It really does.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, for sure. Mama, what do you see?
I think Alex is an awesome counselor, is what I'm thinking. Yeah.
I like it.
Right. No. Yeah, definitely. I think it's pretty scary when a client is sitting across from you and they haven't connected the dots for themselves, scary in their journey of, oh, wow, this is really what it's going to look like. Like, I've got to really examine what it is that I'm experiencing and believe about myself. And, for some clients, it's that comfort. It's the blanket, the shield that they have, that they've wrapped themselves around. And even though the thought is I know I need to change this, there's something, I'm not quite sure exactly what it is, but it needs to change. And they start looking at it. It can be a very awakening, a very scary thing, and so that in itself is, taking the steps to say, okay, let's pause. Maybe we need to take a step back and kind of look at the things. What's that inner dialogue, as I mentioned before? What does that look like? And then asking them, forgiveness of self. What does that look like for you? What does that mean to you? I mean, just really asking a lot of questions in, how they perceive things and how they perceive themselves, and then having those conversations about that.
Well, I think, we see and we talk about this with survivors, and you have ultimately that responsibility is on that abuser, that perpetrator, but that negative talk or behavior, right, goes in, and then that person firmly believes those things about themselves. But then that forgiveness, I think about it a lot with, I'm going to say moms, so we mostly see moms and kids with I let this happen to us. Does that come up for you all in your sessions?
Yes.
Like that kind of guilt, but shame. I put us in this situation, which is not accurate, but that feeling is there, right?
Yeah. Most of the time I ask my clients in those situations, what does that voice sound like? Who does it sound like? Does it sound like your abuser?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Who's speaking?
Right. Does it sound like your mother? I've had a lot of clients tell me that their first heartbreak was with their mother. And a mother's voice stays with you so long. So if
such an important voice.
Yeah, if they're your abuser, and you are continuously putting yourself down and shaming yourself, is that voice your own or is it your mother's?
Yes. And if you accept that voice, right, it's that's what I expect from a relationship. That's that familiar, like you were speaking about, Alma, that normal that's what should be happening. That's that comfort, even though it's not good, but it's comfortable. Oh man, yeah, for sure. I think that's really interesting. I know sometimes I think some of my team says this. They go, they'll talk about my friend that way when you say something about yourself out loud that's maybe negative, like, oh, I look so blah blah blah. They say, don't die. And I loved that. They said it for the first time. They're a generation behind me. So I was like, oh, that's a great way to think about it. You wouldn't say that to your sibling or your friend or your child. Right. Don't say it to yourself, but easier said than done. Right?
Absolutely. And it is a practice, and we are going to fail at that sometimes, but we have to give ourselves that grace to be able to understand that just because change is scary doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to change or I'm not allowed to overcome or grow, right, from this. I think a lot of people are very fearful of, what is the word? What am I thinking of? To
fail,
outgrow.
Oh, okay.
That's the word. To not just to grow, but to outgrow things because the familiar is comfortable. right?
To leave it behind, and that's okay.
Right. You know, and that comes with relationships too.
Sure.
You know, sometimes we outgrow relationships, but we've shared, you know, so many memories, happy or sad, you know, with them. And then we realize, wow, I really want change, but I'm afraid what that looks like.
Yeah. Or I can't leave them behind or something like that.
Or
I shouldn't.
we have a family. We have children.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to be breaking up that family.
And for the rest of your life, that is a connection, and that's something to deal with. So in those situations, for both of you, what do you tell your clients on kind of how to cope with that? What are some positive ways of coping with shame and that spiral, and when you catch yourself in that, like, I'm looking for things, I am, you know, putting that on? What do you say?
Think, you know, some of my clients have said, well, golly, you know, I find myself doing it again. And in that gentle reminder of, but that's a good thing that you're becoming more self-aware and you're spotting it. And it's like, oh, okay. And that's the moment where you can change that dialogue of, okay, I'm, you know, XYZ and I can't do this, is when you catch yourself doing that, it's like, when you're rewiring your brain to cope better, to be, you know, give yourself some grace, is to, when you find yourself say, but I am healing, but I am learning to do things differently, because your brain doesn't understand that. What I mean by that is when things are familiar, and, you know, you start looking in your environment to validate certain things. And if that's negative or has been negative in your life, and you start to change that, and the uncomfortableness comes up, then you recognize that, you see that, and it's like, okay, you know, two things can coexist. You can be healing, and you can still be triggered. And so, yes, definitely. And so when you catch that, that's the opportunity to say, but I am healing. I am learning different coping mechanisms to help me through this. Then your brain starts looking in your environment of what is working, what is, you know, becoming my new familiar, what is feeling safe.
I love that you said that. I have, one of my sisters says that two things can be true. And we've talked about this because it's like, it's not one or the other. Both things are true. You're healing and can be triggered. I think that so many of us, myself included, feel like, well, if I was doing better, I wouldn't be triggered, or I wouldn't be feeling negative thoughts.
If I was completely healed.
Yes, or like if I'm doing the right work, I'm doing it wrong. Is that shame again?
I think we forget sometimes that we're human.
Hello.
I think what you said, that I'm completely healed. You know, I think, and I try not to disappoint my clients, but I'm very realist. You know, it's like
transparent, realistic.
Yes. It's like you're gonna be healing all the time. Like it doesn't ever stop.
It's a continuum.
Yes, it is, because there's things that happen in your future that, you know, you don't know. You could be working on something and it's going well and you're healing, and something else happens. It could be that you're at an intersection and you see a horrific car accident that triggers something. So it's not a bad thing. It's a self-awareness thing. It's okay, this has come up, so how do I heal from this? Or how do I address this? How can I cope with this new thing, this new event that has happened in my life, that I can take a look at and go, oh, okay, I've got the tools to address this.
That's what
I can manage this.
That's what I'm hearing you guys say. Like, if you have the tools and just being able to recognize and address these things and make the switch if you can when you see it, right?
Absolutely. And I think with the counseling department, you know, that our main goal is to encourage our clients to fill their toolbox with whatever tools that they're able to utilize. You know, some people find journaling to be a great tool for them, and some people don't. You know, we won't put that in our toolbox if we feel like it doesn't work for us, right? But I think when people think of the word maintenance, they think like, you know, the maintenance man is going to come and, you know, fix the leak, right? But when you think about mental health maintenance, that's where it becomes, you know, more of a light bulb effect. Like, wow, I really do have to maintenance my mental health, whatever that looks like. If that looks like self-care, right? If that looks like talking to myself more nicely, you know, because my coworker made a comment that I wasn't being nice to her friend, which is me, you know, that's me.
Right.
I should be a friend to me. I should speak nicely to me. And I think a lot of times, people don't really understand that we do need to maintenance ourselves, not just on the outside, but on the inside too.
Inside too. That makes me think about like wellness, physical wellness of like, if you work out and you, let's say you hit your goal or whatever it wants to be, whether that's being stronger or losing some weight or just being generally healthier. But then if you stop,
Right.
that's the hardest part. For me, that's the hardest part. It's like I can do it, and then if I lose motivation or I stop, like, then it's that shame of like, oh, well, of course I did it again, right?
But then I also use the example, okay, so I want to lose 20 pounds, and I go to the gym one time. After that one workout, have I lost 20 pounds?
Right, or I eat one salad and okay, it's fixed.
It doesn't work like that. We have to continue to do those things. We have to continue to practice those things.
Right, it's a practice. Yeah. Ugh, it's hard because we didn't talk about that when we were growing up, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea of practicing mental health positivity.
Yeah, and you don't have to try like 10 different things. If you find something that works for you, you're not reinventing the wheel. It's a process of, okay, this works for me. And just because somebody else comes in and maybe lost 5 pounds after their, the first week of working out, that's great for them. You're a totally different person. And so find what works for you. I've had clients say, well, I used to do this and, it felt really good and it was effective and I'm not sure why I stopped. And so we talk about, well, is that something that you would like to continue, start back up again? And then they'll come back and say, yeah, you know what? I started doing that again and it's really helpful. And it's like, okay. So it doesn't have to be, and for whatever reason, life gets in the way. I say that all the time. And so you may have been doing something and then for whatever reason, the maintenance has just kind of stopped because, whatever. And it's okay to go back to that. It doesn't mean that it stopped being effective. For that period of time, it stopped, but you can pick it back up and go, oh, okay. This feels right. This is working. I can get back on track.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like that can be more difficult for others, especially when it comes to culture.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
So you put me on the spot, Shelby.
I'm interested. You're teaching me today.
Well, I just meant like, coming from a Hispanic household, there's expectations. There is a routine of learned behaviors, that have been,
the roles are set, the duties are.
Right. And then when you realize that you are in a time where that has been outgrown, it's very difficult for you to not only want to make those changes to, better yourself or better your mental health, because you are afraid of what your family is going to, look at it as. Like, are you betraying your culture?
Selfish.
Right. Are you being selfish?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
There's a lot of people definitely
I hear that.
Absolutely.
People. Yeah.
They do misconstrue the difference between being selfish and self-care.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And internally as well. I feel that as a mom. I have little kids. I feel that as a mom. Like, well, if I take 20 minutes to like have a bath by myself, like I didn't do something for my kids or whatever. But it's a very simple version of that, but
absolutely. I think with me as well, just personally growing up, what I was taught was the woman eats last, right?
Okay,
You serve your sons,
yes.
or your children, you serve your husband, and then you serve yourself last.
Yep.
And it's when you want to, I guess I wanted to say, like, when you go against that, it's not like you want to go against it. You just don't feel personally that is
Breaking the pattern.
Yeah, like it's not even just a pattern. Like I don't feel like it's a bad thing for you to think that way.
It's okay to do that.
Right, but in that culture, like you said, you're being selfish. You know, it could be seen or
You're
misconstrued.
going against the grain. Well, because I think that just as we were talking about that shame and guilt, when someone does a behavior that's different than the majority,
Yes.
I think a lot of times the majority gets mad because it's making them have to look at themselves and be like, well, they're doing that and I wanted to do that, or why am I doing this? But that can come out as like judgment or
Who does she think she
or air.
is?
Yeah, but like really they're
Yeah.
thinking about for themselves, like, well, dang, I wish I want to eat with my kids, or you know what I mean, whatever example that may be. Like,
Right.
I think it's more about those people than it is about you, because they're reflecting on, well, if she's doing something differently, does that mean I'm wrong?
I think that's a big thing too, especially with communication. You know, don't talk back.
Oh yeah. Oh, hello. That was
No, yeah, I
I
talk,
grew
you
up with that.
listen.
Yes, that's right. I grew up with that, and that is something I'm trying to break with my kids, but it's hard.
It really is.
Because I'll get triggered and be like, what? You know, or like, wait.
I tend to be I have a dark humor and
Yeah.
sarcastic.
Yes, I
okay.
love it.
And the first time my older son popped off and was sarcastic with me, it took me a moment, and I was just like, and I went, I taught him that, so I can't really be mad at that. And then we laughed about it, and it was like, okay. And then we had a short conversation, but I owned it. It was like, oh yeah, that's like, ooh,
Yeah.
that's me.
Typically when stuff like that happens in my household too, me and like if my little one says something so out of pocket, we'll just look at each other and we'll point like, that's you. And I'll be like, no, that's you.
Yes.
But-
I did that with my daughter. I go, girl. And she goes, girl. And I'm like, yeah. Okay.
That's me. Yep.
We just blame it on my sister.
You know, hey.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, yeah, those things happen. I think that's, all different kinds of relationships this manifests. And I agree, Alvin, when you brought up with just parents, like it really starts, man, this concept of shame starts really young. And not that parents are wrong. It's
Right.
just something we all deal with. So absolutely. Well, healing, we talked about healing, but that it's continuous. And are there any words of advice or tips you would give for like being on that healing journey with the shame spiral?
Well, I think we've touched on it several times, is that it's a process. And everybody's journey looks different. And so the expectations that you have on yourself, looking at it and saying, what is fact? What is something that is a belief that I've grown up with? I'm getting tongue-tied. A belief that I've grown up with that really doesn't fit where I'm at now, and I can see that it's not helpful. And being able to, to understand that it's going to take some time to change that, because again, what's familiar, we go back to what's familiar. And one thing, I remember having a conversation with my younger son, and I may have mentioned it before in one of the other podcasts, but I told him, I said, we grow up and there's certain things that we want to change about our own experience. It's like, okay, well, I don't want to do that because, my mom used to do XYZ kind of thing, and I want to change that. But you just end up making your own mistakes. It's a learning experience. You try to do things differently, and that's great, but you're human.
Yeah. And
to be able to look at that about yourself and go, okay, I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect, and so, and of course he popped off with something. I can't say what he said, but it was just, military. It was kind of like, very colorful language.
well, it's
and
your
I was
first
like,
time as well, right? I like that concept. I see that a lot on social media, but like, it's my first time being in my 30s, as well, like, or it's my first time being a mom too. So it's okay. Those mistakes or growing experiences.
My first time breaking the cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have
It's not
grace
a
for
clear
that.
road, yeah.
Right.
I think something that I would say to hopefully leave with the viewers is sit with it, don't stay with it.
Right.
Ooh, sit with it, don't stay with it.
Right.
We hear you. Okay.
I oftentimes tell my clients, we're supposed to be angry. There's no such thing as a bad emotion, a bad feeling,
Yes.
Being angry or frustrated or jealous or guilty or shame, those are all human emotions, and you are a human being, so we are supposed to feel them.
Right.
The difference is we sit with them, but we don't stay with them. Because if you stay with them, then you start leading with them. You lead with anger, you lead with shame, you lead with guilt, and it ends up a spiral. You end up spiraling. So yeah, sit with it, don't stay with it.
All right. Ladies, thank you so much.
Of course.
This has been, you've taught me lots of things today. I had a little session for myself. I much appreciated, but hoping everybody else got some ideas on the shame spiral and ways to apply that to your own life, whatever that relationship looks like. So thank you very much again, Alex and Alma. I'm sure we will see you back on the podcast again. And that's all for today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic or sexual violence, we are here to help. Our services are free, confidential, and available to everyone. Call our 24/7 hotline at 361-881-8888 anytime, day or night. Stay safe.